we're going to move on to another game that's similar to Space Cadets Dice Duel that we played at Eric's party, and that is Captain Sonar.
Yeah, designed by Roberto Fraga, Yohan Lemonnier, artist Ervin, Sabrina Tobal, and published by Matagot. There was 2 artists, is why I said comma, because I almost read it as one name.
Captain Sonar is another game where you have a team of people against a team of people, and you're basically playing in real time to try to sink the other player's submarine. On your team, you have 4 different roles. There's a way you can play it, I think, with 6, 3-on-3.
Yes.
One of the roles gets shifted over to the captain, I believe. Otherwise,
you can play with 2, actually.
Can you? That's chaotic.
It says 2 to 8. I don't think you'd want to, but
no, we played it a few times. It's the only times we've played it, but
I was just bringing that up. So
yeah, fair enough. Each time we played it, it was with 8 players total, 4-on-4, with a 9th player spectating, who had a lot of fun just doing that. Anyway, so you control this submarine. You got 4 roles. Your first role is the captain. The captain is basically they have a map in front of them. The map is essentially like a grid of dots, except it has some terrain, and the terrain takes up some of the dots, so you can't go there. And you're trying to move around. Every time the captain moves, they have to spout which way they're going. So, like, moving north. Oh, the other thing is each team is sitting on the opposite end of a table, and in the middle, you have a giant wall of boards. Yeah, kind of like a Dungeon Master screen separating both sides.
Right.
So that way you can't see any of their mats and what they're writing on and stuff, because it's all dry erase boards. So anyway, the captain is saying, okay, move north. And he's going to draw a little line from where their beginning position they chose was and draw a line up north. When they say that, the 2 of the other teammates have to confirm that after they make their decisions on their boards. The first being the first mate. The first mate has all these different weapon systems and tracking systems and such. Once they hear the captain move, you get a point to put in one of these systems. When a system is full, you would say, like, sonar's ready, captain, or whatever.
Right.
Once they've marked one of their spaces, they say, okay. The other player on your team is the engineer.
Sounds right.
Yep. They have these 4 boxes. Basically, there's a submarine at top, and then there's these 4 boxes below that have all these circles. And some of the circles are combined across things, but you've got a north, south, east, and west. Anytime the captain moves, say north, you're going to have to put an X on one of the systems that are in there. Those systems match all the things the first mate is putting points into. So, for instance, if you put an X on one of the weapon systems, there's 2 different weapon systems, you can no longer use the weapon systems. It's not really just the weapons. It's like red. So you can't use either of the red systems, but both of those are weapons. There's green ones and yellow ones. So you're putting an X on red, green, or yellow. There's some freebie spaces that you can do and everything. But just to keep it simple, you're essentially marking stuff off. And you're like, okay, what's our intent, Captain? We're going to go up here and fire. Or we're going to go do some sonar to try to track down where the enemy is.
Right.
So, okay, well, I don't want to really mark greens, but eventually you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the captain has to keep track of on your board what you're marking off, because some of these systems are marked together with like a line. So like there's a green or a gold line that kind of combines like a few of the different points across maybe north, south, and east or whatever. And if you fill up or if you put X's on all those, then you get to erase them all. So you basically heal them all. So you're pushing your ship. It's taking like stress damage almost.
Right.
And if you do the right stress damage combinations, you heal because you got the crew working on it.
Essentially.
Then the final role isn't really paying attention to what you 3 are doing. They are the radio operator, and they're listening to the opposite team's captain on where they're going. And they have the same map as the captain, but they have this
dry erase
piece of plastic that's see-through.
Yeah, see-through.
Kind of like a tracing paper. Mm-hmm. You're drawing on that, the locations they're going. So you think they start here at J14, kind of like Battleship. You know, you got the letters across top, numbers down the side. So you're like J14. I think they're starting there. They move north. Okay, I heard them move north. I heard them move west. Okay, they're moving north. That leads them straight into an island, so that's probably not where they begin. So then you move this sheet wherever you want on the map to kind of replace it so that it's not crossing over certain things. So you can kind of, if you make the wrong guess, you can shift the paper around to put it in the right spot. Anyway, at some point, you're going to think you know where there are. There's 9 sections to the game, like, kind of like a tic-tac-toe grid.
Right.
And so when your sonar is ready, or the whatever the one is, drone, you can say drone 8. And the other team has to respond and say no or yes. If they say yes, then you know they're in that area, but you don't know what spot they're in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you could do sonar, so they have to give you a letter and a number, but one of them has to be right. So you could say J13, but you don't know which one's right.
Right.
The weapon systems, you can lay a mine down in a spot, and at any point you're saying activating mine at J13.
Right.
And it'll blow up there, and it'll do damage. It'll do 2 damage to them if they're on it, 1 damage around it. Same thing with the missiles, but you can fire missiles up to 4 spaces, and whoever does 4 points of damage to the other team wins.
Mm-hmm.
They sink. So the interesting thing about this was we played this directly after Space Cadets Dice Duel. How'd that go, Matt?
That was a mistake.
And why was that?
It was too chaotic. And I know we turned to Jeremy and we were having problems. We were trying to pause the game. I think that might have been part of the problem too, was just trying to pause it. Pausing the game for the drone and
attacking.
Attacking, I think you'd almost have to, but for the drone and probe, or is that right? The
drone and sonar.
Or sonar, yes. For those 2 actions, we would just stop, and then someone had to announce, okay, that's done. They announced, so keep going. That's what caused all the confusion. It seemed like. So fast forward to second playthrough, we didn't do that. Went a lot better.
Yeah, I think that both sides, since they just played the other game, was thinking that the faster you go, the better off you are. Because in Space Cadets, it's almost kind of the better option. Mm-hmm. The faster you run around, get things, and get over there and start shooting, the better off you are. In this, it's almost more of a calm and concise, thought process, because you're like, okay, we know that they're not in these sections right now, but they might be up here. They're pinging these areas, so maybe they're really close to that, because there's no point in pinging areas that's too far away from you, because then you won't be able to shoot them if you know they're there, and they're going to be long gone by then.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're trying to narrow them down social deduction style in a way, just listening to what they're doing. And so this, like you said, the pausing stuff doesn't really need to happen. I think the reason we were pausing a lot is because you're like, okay, we're activating drone. Okay, radio operator, what do you think which spot should we drone? You don't do that.
Right.
Your team should know exactly what you're going to do with your ability when you spout it off, so that time doesn't stop or anything. So you're like, drone 8. The other team's like, no. And everybody just keeps going. Mm-hmm. There is no stopping. Or if you do your missile, you're like, we're shooting J13. That's
J13 is the number.
That's the number. We're shooting J13. They either say indirect hit or no, miss. And then you continue. So we don't need to really pause it or anything, as long as you already talk to your team where you're going to shoot. Now, some of that's just on the spot. You have to think real quick, because if you're talking about it, they're like, we're going west. We're going west. Right. And you can't move too fast, because you have to let the other people on your team say okay. Mm-hmm. And the radio operator on the opposite team can call you out on that.
Yeah.
If they're like, okay, we're going west, 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 west. No, stop. Your other people on your team are not responding. Mm-hmm. They need to respond. They need to mark off before they respond. So there's a little bit of honesty, I think, in this game that can be fudged.
Right.
Because if the person that's playing the captain is spouting off commands real fast, and you're just like, yes, or like, okay, and you hit an X. Okay, XX, because you're trying to think where you should put these things so that you can get heals going off on the engineer side of things.
Right.
And I think you can fudge it a little bit.
Yeah. Me playing the captain the first time, I was going a little hectic. But I don't know if it was playing the Space Cadets directly before. They just had us all amped up and thinking that.
I think so.
It's this kind of the same thing. You're just not rolling dice. So I think we was just so amped about like, oh, it's all about speed. It is all about speed. Now, second game, after asking Jeremy, like, is this how most of your game's going? He's like, I've never seen this before.
He was probably like, what the crap is happening?
Why did I leave this party to go get this game and then have this happen? But it was a lot more fun being the calm and collective, you know, I don't know, just a little bit easier going game. It's a lot more methodical.
Yeah.
And it was more enjoyable like that too.
The second game was beyond awesome in comparison to the first game.
And I was thinking back, I just remembered thinking back to Origins this past year is when I don't know if it's when the game came out, but it's definitely when it got a lot of buzz generated. When I first heard about it, I know the people at Dice Tower was talking about it on their shows that we're doing. And I don't know, it got some hype, and I think it's deservingly so, but.
Oh yeah. There's only a couple of things that I think, not really, one's a complaint and one's kind of like, well, I don't know. Basically, if your captain has to speak loud, you don't need to repeat yourself. So if you're like moving north and the two people on your team are like, okay, that's it. I mean, if the radio operator on the opposite team didn't hear you, they can't ask you again.
Right.
But if you've got quiet people on your team,
right,
or in your gaming group, the captain's probably not the best role for them.
Right.
Because if you're like, left, we're going west, or we're going north. Yeah, that's not going to work out. You have to speak clearly enough to where the other team can hear you, but if they're doing something else, like they're talking amongst each other, as long as you said it clearly, they didn't pay attention is a different story.
Right.
Which I think is kind of fun because they're listening in on the conversations of the other ship, but then the captain's like, where do you think they're at? Well, I think they're, it's like you're talking on the phone and somebody's trying to talk to you at the same time. You're like, stop talking. I'm missing this stuff.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool. The complaint I had though is it mathematically on the engineer, it seems like moving east is going to happen way more than the other movements because east, I think, is the only one that has all the repair points tied to other directions. So it's like you're constantly going east in order to repair sections of your ship.
You know, I was captain.
What was the second role you did?
I did the first mate. And as far as how I moved, because I was very, conscious of what we needed to do to clear certain things. I based a lot of my movement on what systems do we need to clear up? Because I want to fire a torpedo. When I was captain, it was like, I want to fire a torpedo. What do I need to do? Oh, it's marked up. I need to do this. Oh, let's start moving this way to clear it off.
Yeah.
So maybe I just didn't pay attention, but you played the engineer, so you were marking it off. So maybe it was easier for you to kind of notice that. But even after the game, we looked and like none of the other three directions have all three colors to repair. Oh, okay.
They all feed into east, but not the other ones. I just thought that was interesting because it means that you want to start more west on the map.
Right.
And travel east because you can travel east. You can almost do like, I think there was a pattern where you can go like north, northeast, south, southeast, north, northeast, or something like that. And you can always repair things with those. It's crazy.
Right.
You become predictable.
Right. I was going to say that if two knowledgeable teams will catch up on that.
Right. Because then the radio operator can shift around his paper and find the big block of locations that you're moving through. So
right.
I just thought that was an interesting choice. Now, one thing I didn't mention in the rules that I think we should say is being able to surface. So,
oh, right.
At some point, if you marked off the wrong damage parts and things like that, and you're like, you know what, I don't know what to do, then you can clear all your damage by surfacing. When you surface, though, do you have to tell them the exact location?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like J13. And so that's exactly where you are. And the only way you can dive again is on the engineer sheet. Like I said, there's a big picture of a submarine separated into 4 sections. And they have like a draw between the lines game where each person has to make draw a line around their section of the submarine, right, and then initial in the middle, pass it to the next person. All 4 players on your team have to do this, pass it back to the engineer. Then you have to lift your board up across because you're always sitting across from the opposite team's same role.
Right.
So the engineer's sitting across from the engineer and he has to get them to sign off on it. Be like, okay. Or, it's kind of you can't really be a complete jerk about this, but basically if you go outside the lines too much, he could say redraw.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting. Then you get to dive and move away. There's also a
silent movement.
A silent movement where you get to move up to 4 spaces in a direction, and you don't have to say which direction you're going. So it throws off the other team. So It's got a lot of cool stuff going on. There's a bunch of maps that have like scenarios and such.
Yeah, there was another spot for scenario, but we didn't do that.
Yeah, I definitely don't recommend scenarios at first.
Yeah.
It's definitely a game that warrants a few plays before you get into that. Now, one of the maps I saw that I'm excited about is the one that's covered in ice.
There's only the few spots to come up in.
Yeah, because there's only a few spots that are big chunks of like open water.
I wonder what happens if you get to a point where you have to surface and you can't come up in that spot.
Well, at any point, like if you draw X's on all the circles in a location on the like all the north spots, you suffer a point of damage and they get to wipe off all those.
Okay.
So if you're traveling and you're too much underwater and stressing out your thing, you're going to end up doing damage to your ship.
Right.
Trying to get to a spot where you can surface.
No, that can hurt. You only got 4. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, final thoughts on that, Matt?
It's good. I look forward to Jeremy bringing it again.
That's the weird thing is it's not a game that I think I'll buy because of how specific amount of players
you have to have a big group.
Yeah, I mean, 6 or 8, and I don't know if I want to shell out the money, but I'm on the edge with that.
Right.
So I really, really enjoy this game, though. So that's Captain Sonar.
Yep.